Dragger, an original novel by Robert Napier, narration and images powered by AI. Chapter 16, A Strange Day. Dex and Rowan rushed across the moor on their runkas. A harsh gale blew across the grassy riverbank. Dex was not an experienced rider, but they rode as though hell itself was on their heels. She felt like one of the little brown spiders that lived in the rafters of the sty, dangling from an invisible thread, tossed and tangled. Never before had she dared to cross the moor. Now she whipped to and fro, one moment desperate to go home, the next to flee into the wind. They didn't stop until they reached the riverport. "Slow Smile," said Rowan thoughtfully. It was a jumble of low wood and stone structures. There never was a more depraved warren of ill-begotten scoundrels. Should be a lot of fun. He looked over at Dex, who gave the old man a determined nod. "Come on, the others are waiting for us." There was a cheerful commotion on the streets of Slow Smile as Rowan and Dex rode through. It wasn't what Dex had expected, though she didn't know what to expect. She had never seen a town before. Compared to Gnarlstead, the place was wonderful and complicated. Dex didn't understand much of what she saw. Shops and eateries, she supposed. She had heard Aunt Ruby talk about such things. Dex was astonished at every corner and paid absolutely no attention to where Rowan was taking her. Rowan fell very naturally into the role of teacher. He spoke exhaustively about details which appeared to Dex to bear no relevance one to the other, except that Rowan deemed it so. He took her lack of interruption as a sign of fascination. "Slow Smile is a misnomer," he said. "The area here is sheltered from the sea by barrier islands further out, nearly connecting the mainland to the Vin. Originally, it was called the Isle of Sho, since it's widely believed the Shojin first inhabited the coast. Here, have a piece of salted meat. Now, how can that be? You're asking. Well, consider. The Joseon are just one slip of the tongue away from Shojin, and seeing how Sho Isle became Slow Smile, it's entirely plausible that, that's new since I've been here last. We should stop if we get a chance." Dex didn't have the least idea what he was referring to, but that didn't stop Rowan from telling her about it. "You know, I once went 18 months without any of those." Dex tried feverishly to take in all the sights and sounds. So many people walking in irregular paths, bumping and laughing, and very few people fighting at all. Men and women without any armor, just really big hats and brightly colored feathers, strutted and staggered down the promenade. Dex didn't mind that the streets were gray and curdled. Everywhere, there was fresh food and cool air from the sea. She really tried to listen to everything Rowan was saying, but her head was so busy turning round and round, she couldn't absorb it all. That's when she noticed two Crussian whites approaching. She tried to subtly warn Rowan. Mumbled Dex, trying to suppress a panic. "This land is sour, you see. Nothing marketable grows in the marshlands, not in suitable quantities. So, what are people to do?" "Psst, Rowan?" She cringed. "Yes, piracy. Well, it's just a way of life if you've got no emperor to look out for you, or if you've got too many." Dex's runka trotted beside Rowan, and she tried to kick him, but her legs were too short. Suddenly, by Rowan's reckoning, they were stopped by the pair of worn troopers. Their white Crussian armor and tunics were threadbare and filthy. "Hello, what's this?" said Rowan, annoyed. The whites inspected Dex and Rowan suspiciously. One of the Crussians took hold of Dex's reins, as if he would lead her off. "How long have you been in town?" he asked, like he already knew the answer. Dex really wasn't sure how long someone stays in a town, so she replied anxiously, a while." Rowan didn't seem to care at all that she was close to panicking. He smiled and nodded at the soldier and said, "She's for sale if you want her." The not-so-white white seemed to think this over until he smelled the gore sty on her clothes. Then he made a counteroffer. "Let me see your papers." Dex nervously fumbled with her clothing, certain she had no paper, let alone papers, and not so certain what sort of papers she should have. But in the moment, she couldn't help but look for them. Rowan spoke in a very calm voice. "This is hardly a worthwhile use of your time. Let us worry about that," said the second soldier, who hadn't spoken until now. "Gentlemen," a burly voice resounded from behind the riders. Dex turned to see Kachaba approaching with a casual strut. "This isn't the kind of trouble you're looking for." "Perhaps not," said the first, letting go of Dex's reins. "Let's all just go about our business," said Kachaba as he strolled on by. "Just save it for third watch, Skimper," said the second soldier with a scowl. Rowan winked at Dex. "Let's keep moving. Tell Captain Sano it was a misunderstanding," the other soldier shouted as they went separate ways. The Runkas trotted up behind Kachaba at a rundown blockhouse hostelry on the outskirts of the riverport. Various unusual beasts of burden were hitched outside the bar. A young sawjaw came up and fondled Rowan's Runka. As Dex got off the horse, she tried to shoo the stranger away. "Is Captain Sano here?" Dex asked Rowan excitedly. "Is she going to take us to Daloran?" "Well, let's go in and see. I don't know if I'm ready for all this." Rowan and Dex walked into the smoke-filled hostelry. The moldy lair was filled with exotic travelers at the long wooden bar. Rowan moved to an empty spot between several loafers and lowlifes. Kochaba, tall and savage, stood out amid the patrons. Like a bear in a wolf's den, his sharp eyes dominated a furry face. He wore massive bandoliers over his broad shoulders. Dex didn't see Lo anywhere. The room was more crowded than the Gorstai, and everyone was taller than her, so that she was buffeted from all sides. Rowan spoke to the Grokken, pointing to Dex several times during his conversation, and the huge man let out several belly laughs. Trek had talked of Grokkens as if they were fearsome beasts that roamed the untamed Northlands. Kachaba and Drager were the only Grokkens Dex knew of, but that was enough to convince her they must all be gigantic and brutal. Trek said Grokken pride was their greatest strength and greatest weakness, but Dex felt certain their great strength was their greatest strength, and that they probably didn't have any weaknesses. She couldn't seem to follow the exchange between Rowan and the giant. She heard them just fine, but they spoke in a lilting tangle of words she had never heard before. She wished that somewhere in all this back and forth, someone would let her know if she was all right, because she was feeling very much like she'd made a huge mistake. She began to fade away in her mind, the way she often did, so that none of this would be real anymore. But there was no escape, as Kachaba spoke plainly in her direction. "This smelly one isn't worth the trouble. We can do it our way." The large man playfully pushed Dex's shoulder. She wasn't paying attention to him, or rather, she was trying to pay attention to too much at once. The noise and mayhem of the room, where war ghouls might be hiding. Maybe Boo had overestimated her weight, because she stumbled backwards. With astounding agility, old Rowan grabbed Dex's shirt and pulled her back onto her feet without spilling his drink. Dex, startled, steadied herself. She rubbed her shoulder and stared first at Rowan for his reflexes, then at Kachaba for the affront. Kachaba was laughing until he saw Dex's expression, like an angry hornet that knows it will be swatted, but nonetheless must sting. He leaned down towards her, surrendering most of his height so that they were eye to eye. "Do you want to hit me back?" he asked. Dex considered the idea, with her hands tightly balled into fists. "You think I don't matter because I'm small. But thorns and foxes are small, and snakes are small. Daggers and arrows are small. Small things find a way." Kachaba laughed thick and deep. "I'm starting to see why Lo likes you." Rowan handed Dex a small plain cup, parched from her ride, and everything else that had happened since who knows when. She downed the drink, without hesitating. It burned in her throat, and she felt betrayed. Rowan and Kachaba laughed and clapped their hands on her back. Dex immediately felt heat rising in her stomach and spreading through her limbs. Her entire body convulsed once, and she felt closer to reality than ever. "So where's my sword?" said Rowan to Kachaba. "If Lo thinks she can hold it hostage." "Huh, relax," scoffed Kachaba. "It's waiting for you on board. All you got to do now is convince the captain you're still worth the trouble. That's what you ought to be worried about. Let's go." They went out the back of the hostelry and down an alley. On the other side was a strange sort of camp. Tents and semi-permanent lodgings cluttered the area just ahead of the riverbank and docks. A motley band was playing around a bonfire, or more accurately, several individuals were tuning odd instruments. A large tent loomed ahead of them. Looking very small by the entrance was Dr. Arlu. She beckoned them anxiously. Dex, still giddy from the drink and marveling at the wonders of a real pirate camp, was jerked backwards by her collar, cutting the breath from her throat. She stumbled, but managed to turn. It was Aunt Ruby for sure. A hooded man shook her by her shirt. "What's she doing here?" Rowan shoved the man away and guided Dex behind him. "Watch those hands, pal. Do you know who that is, old man?" Now Kachaba and Arlu circled. "What's going on?" The man yanked his hood in frustration. "She's one of them." Dex couldn't believe it. "Rux, you're alive! Boy, you scared the shit out of me." She scolded him with playful punches. "Everybody said Rillers chopped you up and sprinkled you in the river." And Ruby said, "Serves Rux right." And he pushed her back. "God, don't call me that." He talked over her head at Kachaba. "Are you out of your mind? Bringing her here? Well, we brought you here. She's one of them. She's been there her whole life. You can't trust her. Bad news, Boo. Bad news. You don't know what they do to those kids. Dragger is the Vitotu rot, the devil. He gets in your head. I know. She's a spy." "I'm not a spy," hissed Dex. But she thought she saw sympathy move across Rux's face, and she couldn't stay mad at one of her only friends, especially since she had betrayed so many others. "I don't blame you, though. I wouldn't trust me either." "Oh, man," he groaned. "How did you get here anyway? Don't you know they'll find you? Don't you know anything?" "She's with us now," said Rowan. It was clear in his voice. He would fight them over it. Kachaba stepped in. "Go stable the Runkas, like we talked about, and hurry back." Rux sighed and lifted his hood. "Yeah, right." Arlu urged Rowan into the main tent. Inside, Losano was sitting cocky and impatient. Before anyone could speak a word, the Princess of Pirates pointed accusingly at Rowan. "I've been waiting all day for you." Rowan nodded politely. "I wouldn't have blamed you for disappearing on that ship of yours, but I hoped you wouldn't." Lo was struck by his sincerity, but still annoyed. "I'm not the type to take off, just because things don't go exactly to plan." Rowan remained calm and smooth. "Lo, my girl, there are times when you surprise me. All this trouble we put you through, and you haven't even received payment yet." Lo stood up and nearly touched his nose with the tip of her finger. "Well, I hate surprises. Next time, don't leave me hanging, or my price will be more than you can manage. Now, if you got a payment to propose, just come out with it." Rowan stepped closer to her, his arm hanging in the air as if to embrace her, but it couldn't find a place to land. "Lo, you're the best in the business, and I'm a man of my word. Haggling is beneath us both. My girl, I'm only coming to you because I need your expertise. So, for an extra, say 20. How about you give me a little more of your time?" Lo stepped closer, as if calling his bluff in a game Dex didn't understand. Rowan, I'll take your mission and your money, but only because of your family, and I ain't your girl." The tent was quiet for a long time. There were several gruff individuals scattered in little groups in each corner. The tent was actually larger than the heap back at Gnarlstead, where the Callows slept, and was stuffed with tapestries, blankets, and rugs of all designs. It was just what Dex imagined a pirate tent would look like, with piles of spoils and fancy things, and rough-hewn furniture, and a big fire popping out front. The pirates were mostly young men, and some women, not much older than she. Their dress was nearly identical, but with little quirks here and there to set them apart. While the clothing was different, Dex recognized it as a kind of uniform that, like the Callows, only differed according to their specific ranks and tasks within the clan. It was mostly drab gray, with straps and buckles and large pouches on their hips, chests, and tucked under their arms. Most of them had no shoes or gloves, but only cloth wrappings for their feet and hands. Dex had observed all this, and still Rowan and Lo stared through each other. Kachaba couldn't stand their posturing any longer. So now what? You want to sack Gnarlstead? He and the other Rillers laughed at the absurdity. There are some crushing concerns, said Rowan, never taking his eyes out of Lo's. Kachaba snorted. Aren't there always? Lo sneered. It's going to cost you, in advance. Dex tugged nervously on Rowan's arm. I don't have any money. Rowan shooed her and shushed her. We haven't very much with us, he answered low. We'd be willing to pay you 2 up front, plus 10 when you get us across the border. That's it, huh? Lo pondered this for a few moments. Rowan scratched at the back of his neck. Look, he started to say. Dex was really curious what sort of argument he'd make, since she'd never met anyone who talked so much. No! Lo launched a silencing finger into the air. I've got a counteroffer for you. I knew it. This whole time you've been baiting me. Well, one-time offer, said Lo, sitting on her fur-lined chair like the queen of cats. I've got a little job on the table, and I'm looking for some extra hands. Dex looked at the table. She saw candles and scrolls and book things and dishes. There were 2 knives driven into the tabletop and a few bones attracting flies. But she didn't see anything like a job. You work with me on this, continued Lo, and Boo and I will think about taking on your job afterwards. Damn it, we don't have time for this. If you think I'm running around with you on one of your crack-track treasure hunts after what happened last time, no, thank you. I'll just throw myself into the nearest crushin' pain pit. A deep voice spoke from the darkest corner of the room. Beyond treasure. Lo looked up from her fingernails to Boo, and he stepped aside to reveal a mysterious figure. Dex gasped. She had not even known he was there. Usually, she was good at spotting ambushes, since Vago was always trying to kill her. Who could this be? She hadn't realized there were so many people in the world that strangers could pop out of any dark corner. This wasn't like Gnarlstead, where those lurking in shadows were her brothers and sisters. I know who that is, said Rowan to Lo while shaking his head. I know who you are, so don't bother with the theatrics. Prince Geyer has come all the way from Gurukol to seek my help, in a matter most essential to his people. Oh, Prince Geyer, is it? I heard your name all around the Sawjaw fight pit, but Prince of what, may I ask? Bogs and bats. The stranger moved to the center and let his cloak fall from his broad shoulders. He was a tall man, his body painted green and black. He was as big as Kachaba, wearing a steel and feather headdress, heavy pauldrons, and a long hafted machete, more like a gore cleaver. His features were sharp and handsome, and his massive body radiated the potential for violence. I am Geyer, Lord of Inva. This man was nothing like the Sawjaws Dex had seen at Gnarlstead. He was nothing like Vegas. As Vegas's name sprung into her mind, she felt the pains of guilt ripping at her guts, as though it would tear out of her, like some wild, shrieking thing for all to see. The Callows said she killed Vegas, and who would believe any different? These same pirates had been there. They knew where she came from, and what she had done. What did it matter who killed who? She had been there, and done nothing to stop anything. She was guilty as anyone, guiltier perhaps, because she knew it was wrong. What must Lo and Rux and Trek think of her? Yeah, I know who you are, and you being here means nothing but more trouble. Damn it, Lo, I'm trying to keep my head here. She scoffed at him, and you prancing around Ghoulville, that wasn't a problem? I needed proof that Commander Dweller was still alive. The Imperial Council won't send help without any proof. One wrong move could start another war. War, war, war. That's all you men think about. Lo grabbed the nearest pirate and humped him vigorously. Oh yeah. Ooh, where can I stick my war? Are you done? Ooh, yeah. And where's this proof you were seeking? Did you even see him? No, but she did. Rowan held out his hand towards Dex, or where she'd been standing a moment ago. Lo, Kachaba and Geyer examined the empty space. Where did she? Dex was moving towards the exit, diminishing, wrapped up in her own arms, seeking some comfort, or safety, or at least familiarity. Lo smiled sympathetically at Dex, but didn't try to coax her back. She then turned on Rowan. That's why you went back for her? She's your witness? You son of a bitch. Rowan shook his head. No one deserves to be trapped in that hellhole. We have to help each other. Lo stood up and circled back around Rowan, moving between Geyer and Kachaba. Exactly. My point exactly. I didn't want to bring this up, but this is part of the deal I struck to get you out of that fight pit. Prince Geyer needs my ship. You were supposed to be in Gnarl Snarl for several days anyway, but with the extra crew, me, and a dashing knight such as yourself, Singo Songo, we can be back in 5 days. Or maybe less. No way, Sano. Not this time. Do you have any idea what's going on out there? What's at stake? Lo scoffed with a rude gesture. Cork you, friendo. Ooh, sorry I can't frolic up and down the Junlun like you and your merry jokers. Rowan flapped his hands. But you can run off with Prince Bogbat for some sawjaw click-clack. Then suddenly, a shrill cry from outside. Ghouls are coming.